All right, everybody. This is Power Move Parker here with another episode of Parker and Dad, episode 16. Sweet 16. I'm reliving my glory days. When I was 16, I had my first car, my Ford truck. It's not the same thing with 16 episodes, but it's still it's still pretty exciting. It's still something to look forward to.
It's what you make it. It's what you make it.
Yeah, it's just another episode, really. But I think it's going to be a good one because we skipped last week. We didn't know if we were going to be back, and all of a sudden we are back on the air and on Old Man Entertainment. The YouTube channel is still going strong, so as long as it's going, we're going to keep uploading stuff. But
well, let's keep in touch with the Republican National Convention because it's nothing but dark, doom, and gloom. That's what the 16th episode will be, dark.
Well, that wasn't Republican. That was DNC.
No, that's what they're calling the Republican one, too.
Oh, my God, really? So I don't understand it. I mean, people thinking they're hearing the same thing. I don't know. I didn't hear dark, doom, and gloom. I heard we're going to get into it. But
I don't know what they watched, but it wasn't the same thing I watched.
Maybe, I don't know.
Sorry, didn't mean to hijack the show there.
Maybe American greatness is dark and gloom for some people. I don't know. Maybe that's just not what people want. I thought it was a good thing, but I don't know. Anytime America, it's kind of the same thing Nikki Haley said about the ambassador to the UN when Ronald Reagan was president. So she actually went back and quoted the old ambassador of the UN in 1984 when Ronald Reagan was running for re-election. And I've actually compared Reagan and Trump a lot, but I know you don't like me to do that. But I actually do think they're very similar in a lot of ways. And the Republican base has changed since 1984. So we're a lot more over the top now. So we are a little more pissed off than we were in 1984. Let's just say that. We were pissed off then, but we're a lot more pissed off now. So Trump actually does represent us more now than, of course, Reagan represented us back then. But she was talking about how the Democrat, how like we're talking about America first. Well, the Democrats, they talk about America first. America is the first person they blame. America first. They blame America first. So any problem in this world, any inequality, any racism, any wealth, the wealth gap or whatever you want to call it, sexism, homophobia, blame America first. That's the Democrats' motto. So Trump is America first. The Democrats are blame America first. That's the big difference I saw.
Oh yeah, it's outrageous, but yeah, I think if you're going to talk about Reagan and Trump, I don't think the men are similar, but I think their situation is. Reagan was a newcomer to Washington. He was relatively not a politician. I mean, although he'd been a governor, but everybody thought of Reagan as he wasn't smart. He didn't know what he was doing. He was not engaged, and so that he was nothing but an actor. And so then they think of Trump in the same light as, well, he's nothing but a reality TV star, and he doesn't know anything. But sorry, I think they are wrong on both accounts.
Yeah, they were wrong. They were wrong on Reagan.
Reagan had a style that he used to disarm people, and he played that oh shucks guy to a perfection. And Trump has his methods too. They don't know what Trump's doing because he keeps them so confused. He throws out just hand grenades in here and there, and they're running and exploding, and then he's just doing things.
Here's a question for Democrats. What if Trump is right? What if his calculations are right? What if all Trump needs to do is talk every night and do little videos? We're going to get into the hostage thing he showed. All the little videos he showed on night one. By the way, this is Tuesday, so we haven't seen night two yet. But night one, I thought was great. Tim Scott, Herschel Walker, Nikki Haley, the father of the Parkland shooter. They want to talk about victims of crime, right? The victims of school shootings. The father showed up. The actual father who lost his daughter in Parkland showed up supporting Trump, talked about getting that phone call, talked about getting invited to the White House, talked about Trump reaching out to him. Herschel Walker talked about, I knew Trump for 37 years. Are you calling me stupid? Are you saying I don't know what a racist is? I lived in the South. I know what a racist is. Are you saying Trump's a racist? Are you calling me that stupid? Are you really insulting my intelligence to say he made it personal? He made it personal. He said, I'm Herschel freaking Walker. And he also said a part that I thought was cool about the reason the opponents don't like Trump is because he is running over their ass. Guess who else ran over people's ass? Herschel Walker. Did the opponents like Herschel Walker? No, they did not. He made a great football comparison. He's like, of course they don't like Trump. He's running over their ass. He's got the Trump train. That's part of why I uploaded this. He's running over. He is running over literally their ass. See? Play on words. That's a donkey back there. Really running over their ass. So I thought it was great.
The line of the night from the Parkland guy, it wasn't the line of the night, but the thing that I think you need to point out is he talked about Trump. He talked about the time that Trump spent with him. All of that was great. But the thing that I got was when they had the press conference after they had enacted the policies, after they had made the changes, they were announcing their findings, and they're standing up before all of the mainstream media, all of the liberals, all of the people that were so concerned about gun violence, about we need to get rid of the guns. No one cares about you as much as we do because we're the left and we're liberals and we care about you. And they're standing up making their announcements. He's standing there beside President Trump, who's fixing to sign the document, and they open it up to questions. And the liberal media, the first question they ask is about impeachment, not about not about what they're going to do to protect children, not how can we make our children safe. It was about impeachment. And Trump looks over at him and says, they don't get it. Unbelievable.
They don't get it. They don't get it. No, that's true. They don't get it. But I think if we're going off lines of the night, you got to look at Tim Scott, Senator. First off, Tim Scott made some very good points. You know how the Republicans are racist, right? History of racism, whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Tim Scott's the first African-American to be elected in the House of Representatives and to the Senate. He pointed that out. And guess what he is? He's not a Democrat. He's a Republican. Oh, but we don't vote for black people. Well, yeah, we do. Oh, we don't like women either. Oh, what about Nikki Haley? She kicked ass too. So I don't understand this whole that the Republican Party isn't inclusive. He was basically saying we want you. Oh yeah, and he also said, within a generation, he went from his family went from picking cotton to the House of Representatives or to Congress. From cotton to Congress is what he said. That was his big line of the night for me. It was like from cotton to Congress. Wow. Any other country can you do that? Can any other country, can you start off as a slave and then within that same lifetime you have a family member that's in Congress? I mean, his grandpa was out in the not in the fields, but he was out he was, Jim Crow, whatever. He was living through that. And then boom, he saw his grandson in Congress. What other country can you do that? I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's the point. I mean, yes, there were other blacks from the Democratic Party, but he was the first Republican from South Carolina. But the important thing, he was the first black from the South. And what he was saying is the Republican Party, the South, and what Nikki Haley said, we're not a racist country. Do we have racism in our country? Yes, but the country is not racist. And that's what they both were saying is you don't come from the South as a black man and come in and get elected against a Strom Thurmond's grandson. This is one of the most staunch what I can't think of the word, but racist people, Strom Thurmond. It was part of the KKK. I mean, and he ran against that in the South and got elected. That is the country we're in. We have bad people. We have bad cops. We have bad politicians. We have racist people, but we're not a racist country. And I think Nikki Haley said it great.
Yeah, and yeah, that was perfect. That was awesome. And she was talking about how she went toe to toe with the Obama administration during that time. She was in South Carolina, and how they eventually just backed down from her. She won. She beat the Obama administration. She's off at the UN, which was cool. The way she phrased the whole thing with the whole Reagan, she started off kind of the whole Reagan thing, which I thought was cool. But there's so many stories that came out, and I just don't know how you don't take a little bit of positivity from that, because going back to Tim Scott, I just thought it was amazing.
Great.
I thought he was the best speech of the night. I know Herschel Walker, it was an emotional speech. Tim Scott was like he's the American dream. He's what you want to be when you grow up. Like, I want to be Tim Scott. Like, I don't care what color he is.
I didn't get to see the Cuban immigrant that talked about his family coming over and about growing up.
I didn't either.
And socialism and they said that was probably one of the most compelling speeches. But I'm like you. I thought Tim Scott hit a home run, and I think the whole night was a home run. I was watching two talking heads this morning before I went to work, and they were analyzing both conventions, and one guy for the Democrats saying, well, there was nothing new. There was nothing that's going to change people's minds. You know, it's the same things we've heard over and over. And the Republican guy goes, well, no, not for us, because we've heard that. The problem is someone that's tuned into this convention that watches mainstream media has never heard any of this, because mainstream media doesn't cover it. They're not going to get it anywhere else. So someone for the first time tuning in to a Republican platform off of the mainstream media, yes, all of this is new. They haven't heard any of this. So yes, it's going to change some minds, because if someone comes in who gets their information through the newspapers and through the mainstream media, they haven't heard these things about Trump, because like the father said from Parkland, they're too busy talking about Russia, fake news, impeachment, all of those things. They haven't talked about what Trump's done, what he's accomplished, the opportunity zones, all of the things that were talked about last night, that if you're engaged and you're listening, and there's not new. But there are a lot of people out there that are not getting their news. The only place they hear it is through CNN or ABC or those channels, and they're not going to have a clue what's going on because it's never reported.
Yeah, I don't know what that Democrat person was saying. If that's what they were saying, that they didn't get any takeaways. Trump is literally called racist all the time. He's called whatever. He said they don't do anything for black people, whatever. They want to make you think he's a terrible, terrible person. Would a terrible person work so hard to free 50 hostages? Since 2016, Trump has freed 50 hostages from overseas.
He appointed Robert O'Brien. He said,
yeah,
you're the guy. You're going to go in, you're going to negotiate, and we're going to get our people back. And
there was a room, probably the most powerful. Yeah, probably the most powerful thing was the room of the 8 people. The 8 people that he had, 4 people on one side, 4, and he just said, hey, tell me your story. And he was just sitting down talking to him. And people don't want Trump to be humanized like that. So they focus on, well, Trump's talking too much, or why is Trump on every night? We don't like that Trump's on every night. You know why they don't like Trump on every night? Is because every night Trump's on, he is dominating headlines. He is dominating headlines, whereas Joe Biden, who couldn't even pull 2 sentences together, was barely able to talk one night, if that, and you still couldn't understand what he was saying. Trump has the energy of a freaking lion. He's 5 nights or however long this is, talking every night. He's got his son, his family talking. Listen, Hunter Biden talked. I mean, we've seen Jill Biden talk for they were going on about how Trump shouldn't have his family talking for him, which to me is really stupid. If you were running for president, I would hope I would get to talk for you at the convention. I think that would be a testament to your character if your son came out and talked for you. So the fact that that Trump has, I don't know, 2 sons, he has, 2 sons, daughter-in-laws, whatever. He has 2 daughters. He has a whole family of people, his wife talking for him. To me, how do you frame that as a bad thing? The fact that Trump has all his people talking for him, and the fact that he's talking every night.
It's Trump. It's bad because it's Trump.
But we're voting for Trump. We're not voting for the other. We're voting for Trump. That's the thing is, Biden has.
I just can't stand it. It's just, you're never going to change that. They hate it. But I think the convention has been great. I think there was another person that was on, I saw just a little while ago, where they were had a focus group and they were watching it, and they said both the Republicans are going to be one way, the Democrats are going to be one way, but the people that identified as independent throughout several of the speeches had very, very positive responses. And I think that's the key people that are going to change, is because, yes, they were reacting to Tim Scott, to Nikki Haley, to the Parkland dad, the people, and they said, well, they're going to have to vote for Trump and Biden. That's the 2 that they're going to have to hear from. No, they need to hear from these other people because they've never heard from these people, because those stories haven't been told. And their response to these people were very, very positive. And so I think the information that's getting out in the convention to the swing voters, the only people that matter right now, the Trump voters are going to vote Trump. The Biden voters are going to vote Biden. It's the independents, the undecided in the middle, and they're hearing a story about Trump from people that are credible, that are inspiring, and they're hearing a very, very good story. So so far, if the next 3 nights are like this night, it's a home run.
Yeah, and I hate to break it to people, but this is from CNN, by the way, so I'm not making this up. Biden and Trump matchup Titans. Let's read the whole headline. Titans as enthusiasm hits new high. So this is from CNN. And there was also another thing I saw where Trump had a 51% approval rating, which is the highest he's had probably his whole presidency. Now people are saying, oh, wait, we have to concentrate on the election. I don't know what people don't get about Republicans in general, but we've had this discussion before. But if you're a Republican and you're not like me and you, we're obviously super political. We're not your average Republican, I don't think, as far as like our political, like just wanting to know what's going on in politics all the time. Most Republicans, I think, they look at their jobs, they look at the economy, they look at their taxes, they look at what's going on just around them. And they vote with their pocketbooks. They vote with their feet.
Exactly.
People don't vote with. We saw that with Goya Foods. The liberals wanted to boycott Goya or whatever. Well, just before you know it, Goya was flying off the shelves as fast as they could. That's one little example. But another example is voting with their feet. I think. What's Dana Perino? She's very level-headed. She made this point, too, on the 5. She's like, people vote with their feet. People are leaving California in droves. People are leaving New York in droves, heading to Florida. Why do you think that is? Why do you think they're not staying in California? Joe Rogan's even said it on his podcast several times, and Joe Rogan is pretty much like the middle American type guy. Like, he pretty much represents a lot of men in America. They're just like, as long as my life's good, I'm going to keep voting for the same guy. Like, as long as nothing's crazy, I'm not going to change the way I vote. And as crazy as things have been in this country, things are starting to get back to normal, and people are starting to realize, oh, crap, there's there's a lot of people overreacting to things, and things were pretty good before COVID hit. So I think people are starting to kind of come to their senses. If the election was in June or July, I would say Trump lost. Trump lost, landslide. Biden's got 300, 400 electoral votes, whatever. Now I'm thinking Trump might win like he did against Hillary. I think he can get 300 votes. I think he can probably get a little bit like 310 around there with electoral votes. I think Trump could actually pull this out. And I think excitement, even in CNN, the fact that CNN is talking about polls tightening, and that was just a couple days ago, that article I read, that's got to be scary for Democrats who usually poll very well. Like the majority of Democrats, they poll great. The Republicans have never polled well because this is what Republicans don't vote with polls. If a poll person calls them, they just hang up. They don't vote. They're too busy taking care of their family, taking care of their kids, trying to make money, trying to get by. They're the working class. It's the party of the working class, not as much. The Democrats, I guess, used to be that party, but now the Republicans have kind of adopted the middle, white, rural, working class people. They're not voting with polls. They're not answering pollsters. So they're voting with their feet and they're voting with their money. So I think if you look at that, Trump's got a pretty good chance again.
Yeah, I don't. The polls are so subjective. It's not like we call 100 people and we tell you what they really say. We call 100 people, we get what they say, then we extrapolate it based on what we think is going to happen. And so all of the numbers behind that are so cooked and I don't know. But yes, the number that is interesting is Trump's approval at 51. That's a straight number. And the fact that Joe Biden got absolutely no bump in the polls from the convention. And
Republicans don't even get 50% ever approval. I don't think they do.
It's tough. I mean, it's tough to get an approval rating that high. And especially for Trump. For Trump to get over 50%, he's rarely been over 50% approval since he's been president. So I think everybody was shocked by that. So it's going to be interesting as it comes down the wire. I don't know. I mean, you hear people and you hear things. Don't underestimate this voting and mail-in. And if they start getting a lot of states that are saying we're going to keep the ballots and count the ballots for 4 or 5 days, the problem with that is you can have the mail-in ballots and all of those things. But when you start saying on election day, after we start giving the results, and so we come in and say, okay, Trump's won all of these states. They've all voted. They all know. And you got 2 or 3 states out there and say, well, we're not going to announce where we're at right now because we still got other ballots and we've got problems. And they find out, oh, Trump's ahead here. He's ahead here. We need about this many votes to put him over the top. And then all of a sudden they find ballots to count. And they're still counting ballots 4 and 5 days after the election. That's when corruption comes in.
Yeah, someone was just calling me, but I deleted it.
What state it was. We've already got a state that's petitioned to say we want to continue to count votes 4 days after election day because we know we're going to have a high number. No. If you're going to vote by mail, mail early.
What I don't get from this whole post office thing is like, okay, the post office has never really been something that like anybody's ever fought for or cared about until Trump attacked it. And I'm hearing that the post office has had problems for a long time, even before Trump. The post office had problems. It was kind of a failing service for a long. You have other options. You have UPS. You have FedEx. You got You got email now. The post office. I know it's a service and it's constitutional, and I get all that. But as far as like the business itself actually being profitable and the government kind of having to always bail it out, it seems to me like it's not really doing its job like it was supposed to. And so Trump attacks it. And then all of a sudden, instead of passing a stimulus bill, the House of Representatives, which is Democrat, they want to pass a $25 billion postal service bonus to the Postal Service. They want to send $25 billion to the USPS.
Yeah.
Why do they do that? But they can't pay Americans. They can't pay Americans.
All the post office said, the post office didn't say we're out of money. The 25 million or 25 billion is not going to even be billion is not even going to do anything about the election. They've got money for that. The other thing is, put it into perspective. The post office handles 40 million pieces of mail a day. The voting, they're talking about ballots of maybe 250 to 300,000 pieces of vote for the mail-in ballots. Say it's 1 million, but we're talking about 500,000 ballots, and that's a high number when they're doing 40 million a day. That's not much of a blip in the radar for additional pieces of mail. The post office didn't say we can't handle it. The post office said, don't say you can mail it 2 days before the election. You can't. You can't request it and get it. We have anywhere from a 2 to 5 day window of when we process mail. That's reality. So when these states say you can request a ballot 2 days before, it's not going to happen. That's all the post office was saying. Don't give unrealistic standards. Not that we can't handle the mail. We handle 40 million pieces of mail a day, but we don't do it in 2 days. We do it from 2 to 5 days.
Yeah. And I don't understand this whole, so it's almost like what Trump said was just that people should vote in person. If you really want to vote for somebody, vote in person. Basically common sense. I've thought of it this way. If you had
Dr. Fauci said it's not dangerous. Put a mask on, go, vote. It's okay.
But shouldn't you, if this election is as big as people say it is, wouldn't you want to vote in person? Wouldn't you want to make sure your vote got to the right? I don't understand, because it seems like to me, if you really wanted to win the election, you would go vote in person. And also, I want to clear up the whole absentee versus universal global, the global mailing. I don't know if I talked about this before, but the universal mail-in ballot is not the same as absentee. Universal mail-in ballot is if your name is on the register as you're a registered voter, they just send you a ballot. You could be dead, you could have moved, your dog could have gotten one. I mean, there's so many things that could happen between the time you register. I registered just now, and my registration is good until next year. I mean, there's a lot of things that can happen from me right now until next year, if you know what I mean. So universal mail-in ballot, that's why Trump's attacking it. People are so stupid. They're saying absentee, he does absentee. It's not the same thing. Absentee, you actually have to fill out a paper. You have to request a ballot. You have to send in your mailing address. You have to request it. And then, of course, in 2 to 5 business days, you get a ballot back. But universal mail-in is just, okay, you're a registered voter. We think you live here. We think you need this many ballots. We're just going to mass send all these ballots out. There's a lot of problems that go into that. I mean,
perfect. You have a perfect example. You moved recently to Kerrville because you got the job, but you were already registered to vote here. I have a voter's registration card for you for this address. Now, when you moved to Kerrville, you registered to vote with the office there, the county clerk's office there. So you're registered to vote in Kerrville, but you're still registered to vote here as well.
So I would get 2 ballots.
Because they don't reconcile the things. So you could come down here, take this card, vote, and you can take the card up there and you can vote there. The system has holes in it. But if they just mail out ballots, it's not, you've got to have some checks and balances. They're going to check your ID when you go vote here in Texas, and your driver's license says the address up there. They're not going to let you vote in person down here because your driver's license is wrong, so they can catch it. But if you just mail out ballots and let somebody sign it and mail it back in, and you haven't done anything to check it on the front end, you're correct. That's why absentee balloting, you have to sign documents. You have to have a witness. You have to return it. They're going to verify your signature. But mass mail out, they're just mailing it. Somebody signs it, they mail it back in. no checks, no way of catching fraud.
I actually saw this little clip from Ice Cube, the rapper. He's like a big time rapper, African American. Especially in the '90s was when he really came up. But he was saying he actually had a little video like a couple days ago, and he was saying he was talking about the Democrat National Convention. He's like, what have they said that's actually going to get black people to vote? What has the Democrats actually said and done? Okay, they say they're going to get rid of Trump. Okay, let's say the Democrats win. Let's say, hypothetically, because I don't think it's going to happen, the Democrats win, they get rid of Trump, day one, Trump's out. Okay, what do you do with the other 3 years and 364 days? Trump's out day one. What do you do after Trump leaves? What do you do then? What's your plan? You know what I mean? Like, what's the plan after they get Trump out? Do they have a plan for America other than getting Trump out of office? Because I haven't heard that. Have you? I've been listening. I tried to listen to the DNC. It was about how bad the country is and that we need to get Trump out. So Ice Cube was saying, and he wasn't endorsing the Republicans fully because he probably still hates Trump, whatever. But he was saying, okay, Democrats, you get Trump out day one. What do you do for the rest of the 4 years you're in office? That's a pretty good question.
They're going to get rid of the police. They're going to get rid of fossil fuel. They're going to bring in universal health care. They're going to raise your taxes. Yeah, they've talked about a lot of the stuff that they're going to do. They're going to put more regulations on things. They're going to bring in the Green New Deal. They've got a lot of plans.
But they haven't said those things at the convention.
No, they didn't talk about that. They just talked about how bad Trump was.
But the convention is where you're supposed to lay out the party platform, isn't it?
Well, they don't want to talk about it because it's not popular.
Oh, okay. I was trying to get the thing going because I was like, okay, so wait a minute. So you're saying if they said all those things straight up, Americans wouldn't like that? Is that what you're telling me?
Well, I'm saying they don't want to be honest with you.
You're saying that America actually likes being protected and actually likes, having jobs in plants and actually likes having jobs in America and manufacturing jobs in America. And you're saying that regulations are bad? Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, I'm saying, like Tim Scott said, join the Republican Party, vote Republican. You can come into our party, and here you can be free.
I thought it was about free market too. I thought that's what I was talking to Cody Welch, and of course he's a libertarian, so he thinks the Republicans are lying too. But he said the talking points for Republicans were way better than the Democrats, and I'm like, yeah, it's pretty obvious the Republicans were talking about, free market. If you like the free market, I don't really see there's not really a contest here. If you like free market, if you like, I guess you call the invisible hand to govern itself. Here's the thing: if people in America cared about global warming, if people in America cared that fossil fuels were burning the freaking ozone, whatever. Sorry, F-bomb, but I'll bleep that out later. But if they cared about those things, wouldn't they buy smart cars? Wouldn't they spend money on things? Because there's options out there. There's Tesla. Those things are too expensive. So you know what we do? We buy the affordable option. If you want people to actually save the planet, you make those things. You make them less expensive. You actually have charging stations. I'm in Texas. I don't see a freaking charging station. If I go to Austin and San Marcos, maybe I'll see one. But in Kerrville, you're not going to get an electric car out here in Kerrville trying to find a charging station. It's not convenient. Monetarily, it doesn't work. So the only way you change that is by letting the free market decide and building those things up and doing things like that. You don't just force people to buy things or do things or, make things a certain way. You don't force businesses to do things. You force businesses to step up and compete with each other. You step back and say, okay, Ford, they're gas powered, but man, they're cheap. Okay, Tesla, you want to compete with Ford? Oh, you better start making your stuff cheaper and more efficient. Or, you step back and you let them decide. You don't force your hand and say, okay, I'm going to squash Ford and push Tesla on every. That's not how you solve the issue, because people are always going to come up with new ways to do things. So I don't understand why people don't. I mean, when you're forcing your will, forcing these regulations, forcing people to do things a certain way, anytime the government has ever forced something on people, in the history of time, it doesn't work. It never works. The government is not good at forcing people to do anything. I mean, except through violence.
You got to get government. You got to get government out of everybody's business and get them out of the way. And I think Trump's done an amazing job, and hopefully they're going to talk more about that. So I'm excited. I think it's been a great one day. I'm excited about where things are going. I was a little worried there for a while, but hopefully there's enough time left to get the case out and for people to see. And it's a very important election, and everybody needs to get out and vote.
Well, Biden said if a couple scientists told him to shut down the country to stop COVID, not stop the curve. He wants to beat the virus. He wants to actually eliminate COVID forever. So he's willing to shut down the country to do that. What does that look like when Biden says he's willing to shut down the country for a long time? What does that mean when a president threatens that to people, to say, I'm going to shut down?
It should scare everyone. It should scare everyone.
Okay.
Well, we can go back into the whole science. The death rates are just, it is horrible what has happened. But people, if you look at other things, you look at cancer, heart disease, car accidents, and take it, but you can't take it forever. I understand, but there are things that are far more threatening. In the beginning, they didn't have a handle on it. In the beginning, we had to do some things. But there are making leaps and bounds, and that's something they talked about last night. The president has opened up and said, remove these block obstacles. We need to put the American ingenuity in place, and they have, and they've done many great things with therapeutics. The vaccine is coming. People have now learned how to protect themselves and protect others. That would be absolutely the worst thing that can happen, is to shut down the economy again. There are statistics and there are studies out there showing that by staying home, by shutting down, by putting off doctor's visits, by putting off cancer checks, by putting off some surgeries and some things, and just
therapy.
By ourselves, there has been an increase in suicide. There's been an increase in other illnesses and other death.
What about therapy? What about therapy? We have a personal connection to, some people that take therapy. What about therapy? You can't have you can't have face-to-face therapy.
And you're missing stuff. I mean, Teladoc is great. I'm glad they have it.
It's not the same.
You can't be having some time of a scan or an in-person visit, and you put that off and you say, well, I don't feel really great, but I'm not going to go in and risk it. And then you have a stroke or a heart attack or something happens. There's countless cases that are out there. So no, we don't understand what this has done to America. And we need to get out of it. We need to get back to life. And this has been crazy.
For example, I'm teaching in person. I'm having a blast. I'm connecting with students. They're seeing me. They're coming to my classroom. I'm talking to them. I'm actually interacting with kids. They're smiling. They're glad to be back in school. They're glad to be with their friends. All the kids have been well behaved. They've worn their masks. They're 100% glad to be back in school. Meanwhile, you're going virtual and you're not exactly, you're doing your best, but you've told me you're not really connecting with the students like you would like to.
Well, you can't teach in the little time that you have and the conditions that you have. You're getting some information across, but, we spent 2 days trying to sign onto computers to get kids to know how to log in. when they go to a site, they go to they log into that site and either the material's there, it's not there, or they can't get logged in, and then they have questions. I mean, I started class 3 times today because we continue to have kids get dropped off or come in the call late, or someone's microphone's still on. It's absolutely insane to try to take a young person that age and be able to communicate to them in a way that, you know, you're trying to read a book and you're not there. And so you're putting it up on your screen, sharing your screen. I can't see your screen. It's flickering, and they don't have the materials. It's just outrageous what we're doing, and the risk doesn't offset what we're having to do. They need to be in person, and we need to take precautions, but kids need to be in school.
Yeah, just the happiness you see just from them sitting and, like, even reading. These kids were happy to read. Some of my kids were actually happy to open up a book and read and talk to each other about books. Like, it was insane. I know that's going to wear off eventually, and kids are going to be like, oh, I got to go back to school again. But
they need the interaction. They need the friendships. They need
social interaction. We're social creatures. All right, well, that's it for today, episode 16. The RNC breakdown. That was pretty much what this was. Optimism versus doom and gloom. I don't know. You decide on what country you guys want to live in. And we'll be back next week, and we'll discuss more of it. And we'll see how episode 17 goes next week. But until now, see you later.
All right. Have a good weekend, everybody.